Hello and welcome to American Amnesia. I'm your host, Cliff Garner, and been rather busy this past week. School kind of starting to come down to a close for the school year, and finding out what I'm going to do this summer. I'm really not entirely sure. I think I got a few things lined up, but I need to look into a couple other things for what I'd like to do. I do love teaching. There's a couple things here I do have book-wise, and they go into kind of what I'm talking about. I got this one here, homeschool curriculum. I do tutoring also, and I'm looking at maybe doing homeschooling for a few select young students, and I'd like to kind of bone up on some things, like what kind of preparations I need and things of that sort. In fact, there'll probably be a few things I might even use in the future on programs here. I might have to get a whiteboard, for example, and there's a few other things that might come in handy. So anyway, that curriculum book, I bought that today, actually, and this one I also bought today, and this is here we go, Sydney Toy Castles, Their Construction and History. And it's got some diagrams and layouts and things. It looked pretty good. They had a pretty fair chapter on Constantinople, and I saw a lot of those fortifications up pretty close. I also saw a few in China while I was there. So I have a bit of an interest in things of that sort. And I've got a few books on construction of defenses during the medieval times, things of that nature. Forts in the New World, you got a book on those. And speaking of teaching, this is something I bought a little while back, the Handbook of Good English, and I've been thumbing through it because I was looking at some things I might want to go over with my class. Just really to help them. They're more worried about the mechanics. Of course, it's a 101 comp course, so they do tend to worry about that a little bit more than the broader formatting kind of things that really probably equally important. Citations and stuff like that too, which I've been actually boring their pants off with for a little while, but it's necessary. It's just part of what you do when you take a comp class. But I do have fun. I write funny sentences when I give examples and stuff, and I went through the present tenses today. I'll go through the others hopefully Wednesday, and maybe do something a little more fun by Friday. Anyway, another book that I picked up. I got this about, I'm going to say, October or so, and I bought a copy of this when I was in Istanbul, the Prague Cemetery. Just one of the best fictions that I've read from modern writers. Eco's one of my favorites. I love his nonfiction work as well as his fiction work. And the Prague Cemetery deals with the layers of contribution that were noted in the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and how they came from many different sources, including Masonic and even Napoleonic sources. There wasn't just the Jews who were accused of being conspirators, or there were others. And there's reasons why that they talk about the Jewish Masonic conspiracy to take over the world, which, well, quite frankly, is garbage. But there are reasons people say that. I mean, you look at the Rothschilds, and they're pretty sinister. But the Rothschilds aren't most Jewish people by any means. It's a guilt by association that really gets out of control. But it's a good book. It shows how that work was actually begun by what's his name? Dumas? Was it Dumas? No. And he wrote a book on Cagliostro. It wasn't Dumas. It was one of the other French novelists that did that one. And it starts with a scene in a cemetery, and it's with Cagliostro and a bunch of Masons trying to. I think they're raising a spirit or something. Pretty messed up stuff. And Cagliostro, one of the great charlatans, was he a Mason? Well, he had a quasi-Masonic lodge. We know that. I don't know if he was definitely initiated or not. I'd have to look it up. I might do one of the programs on a character like him. They're fun to do, and Cagliostro is a rather fun character. But one of the things I was looking for, and I came across a couple of the others, was this one, and the Gulen Movement, Civic Service Without Borders. And this was by Muhammad Chetin, and it was actually published in Turkey. I think it's available over here, pretty sure. Good book, very dense in information. However, it's completely from the perspective of Hizmet, which is the Gulen Movement's name, or one of the names. There's another one. I don't know if it's on the back here. No, but definitely Hizmet is one of the names they take for themselves. It means service, and I know a lot of people in Turkey on pretty much all sides of just about every issue, and I did know some people who were part of the Gulen Movement, and it was kind of interesting, it was like you just had to prod them a little bit and kind of find out if they were in it, and they would usually roll their eyes in the back of their head and say something to the effect like, the movement of service is the true Islam, or things like that, it's true religion, it's things of that nature. It's really kind of funny, when you get their goat and they kind of go into their little inner safe space, and come back with that. But there was a lot of talk when I was there of it being a cult, a religious cult. It has a lot of the earmarks of that. One of the things that Gulen used was the lodge system that largely comes out of the Sufi tradition. And what that is that as people move from town to town, that they go to the lodge. And the lodge is actually a place where they would also worship. I think you find with the Freemasons it was probably kind of a parallel movement in a lot of ways, because I understand that the original Masons were Bible readers, which until the Reformation was actually forbidden, but that the Freemasons actually translated their own, apparently, and that they would read it in the confines of their lodge. But when you travel from one town to another, that you would need to establish your presence with people in your community. So with the Freemasons, it would be, stonemasons that actually worked on stone, back in the original times, and with so it's like an inn, right? And you can see where this comes from. And now with the Sufis, in Turkey they're called Mevlana, and there's different Sufist traditions. Some of them are actually more Sunni. So most of them are more Shiite in orientation, but they're all mystical. And one of the key writers that if you want to understand what this is all about, it would be Rumi, Rumi, and he was a mystical Muslim teacher, and they called him Mevlana. I've been to his tomb. If you go to Konya, which in ancient times was called Iconium, that city was the original capital of the Rum Selçuks. So after the Battle of Manzikert, I forget the Turkish name now, but after the Battle of Manzikert, the Rum Selçuks flooded onto the Anatolia, onto the plain, and they even got up to the water's edge in some areas, and rather quickly. And Konya became the capital city of the Rum Selçuks, and that's where Rumi, who's also called Mevlana, I mean that's the name that they give him, is buried. And he was a mystic from Persia, and he came to the Anatolian plains, and he taught, and he lived there, and eventually he died over there. And I went there a couple times. It's a really remarkable city. The very unique architecture. It's pre-Ottoman actually, and so you see an older mixture of Arabic and Greek and even Persian, that kind of gets mixed in with it. That is just really cool. It's really different. Whereas the Ottomans, they really ripped off Greek architecture in a big way, especially the Byzantine era. And that's why their mosques have that look that they do with the domes and stuff. Whereas with the Seljuks, they did use domes, but they also used these really interesting angular structures that were pretty cool. In Konya, not only for the Mevlana, but also outside of the town there is Catal Hoyuk, which is one of the oldest cities anywhere. I mean, it's up there with Jericho and what else? Ebla and a few others. I mean, it's just really ancient. And going there is always really, really neat. And I went there twice. The first time I had to take a taxi, which was actually kind of cool. The taxi would pick you up at the oh goodness, the bus station, this little village. I don't remember the name of it now. And they would drive you out there, and they would stay with you. You know, they'd charge you like what was it, 50 or 100? I don't remember. It was one of the two, but I think it was 50 actually. And they'd drive you over there, and he'd wait for you to finish, and he'd drive you back. You know, it was cool. It wasn't too far out from there, and that's outside of the furthest districts of Konya. It's out in the countryside, you know. So you saw lots of sunflowers and beets, a lot of sugar beets. They grow sugar beets out there, and it's a beautiful area. It's a little desolate, a little dry during the summertime. But it's pretty cool. And also, I'll tell you what. The first time I went there, that was 2011, I believe. Yeah, because 2013 was the last time I went. So 2011, I went there, and during the summertime, and it was pretty interesting. I walked all around the whole place, and I talked to the guy that pretty much ran the place, you know. And while we were talking, there was a joint American, I think Australian, and Danish, if I'm not mistaken, group that was doing some kind of finer digging inside the main complex, and what they had found was a design on the wall. It was a wall, not really painting, but it was a design that was made on the wall with some kind of dye-like materials, and that's the last, I think, major find that they found at that particular site. Now they have a new site going up down the road, and it's about, I'm going to say about 5 kilometers down. And they started digging on it in 2013, I believe, because it was probably right around the time that I went the last time that they started it. And I was there, and I saw a group of German students that came to Catal Hoyuk from the dig. They were working at the dig, and they had the time off, and they wanted to see the main dig. And so I actually got to talk to a few of them. It was pretty cool. And so you know, there's all kinds of things to see in Konya. But the Mevlana Museum is truly unique, and Rumi's body is buried there. A lot of his family is still going. Their name is Chalabi, which is not an uncommon name, but it is his family name. It's been passed on, and I watched people in ecstasy in front of his tomb. It was actually pretty cool. There was also, they had some things that were actually owned by Muhammad, supposedly. There were like his musical instruments. There was like a violin-like instrument and a more of a lute kind of thing that they had, and also his beard, the Muhammad's beard. I've seen 2 different versions of his beard, supposedly, and one of them was there in Konya. And it was really kind of weird because I was standing, you know, I'd gone through the line and came up to it, you know, and I'm reading the card at the bottom, and it's this nice silver, looks like a lunchbox, you know, so, you know, kind of a reliquary or something, you know, something to put relics in. And it really pretty, nice and silvery, shiny, and it, like I say, it looked like a lunchbox. And I felt somebody brush me from behind, and it was a girl in a hijab, and she's going, mashallah, 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 just like this, rocking back and forth, and she was running up against me, like, whoa, wait. But again, there's this ecstasy. I mean, it was like I was standing there, and she walked up behind me, and apparently read it, and just all of a sudden, boom, instant trance. Really. Really interesting, and that was an experience. But yeah, Muhammad's beard. Supposedly inside of it, I guess they shaved it off and stuffed it in the box. The other one I saw was that they also had another copy or version of his beard, or I don't know, different shaving, I guess. In the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, where the Ottoman caliphs held their court, and beautiful place. And in that case, it was in a small gold box, and there actually was a hair that was in a I don't know. It was like in a glass container and this and that. So, a hair from Muhammad's beard. You could actually see it. Couldn't touch any of it, but supposedly Muhammad's sword and Abu Bakr's sword, the sword of Malik, I think, was one of them. And a lot of the early caliphs. All kinds of things of that sort. Supposedly they had King David's harp, and what is it, Abraham's little pot, and just all kinds of things like this, and of dubious origin. It just really kind of interesting though. But they also had the locks to the original doors to Mecca. Pretty cool to see those things. A lot of weapons over there at Topkapi. Topkapi is just really, really neat. And right now they're doing the Tulip Festival in Istanbul, so. Something I miss, actually. I love the tulips there. They're gorgeous. And so the news that I got recently of the plebiscite or referendum, I suppose, actually, technically, for Erdogan, and the handing to him of sole power in the country was done just a couple days ago. Sunday. Today's Monday. Okay, so it would have been yesterday. I take the news very hard. Pray for the people of Turkey. I love the Turks, and I love the people, the other minorities there, the people within the boundaries of that country, and just wonderful folks. And I know people on all sides of the issue. I knew some gray wolves and their type. They liked me because I had a Fu Manchu. That's one of the reasons I know about that. Because I generally, if I grow facial hair, I'll grow the mustache down. And I did, and I would hear things like they'd flash me the sign of the horns and stuff, But I'd hear some pretty crazy stuff sometimes, and bless them, They thought of me as being one of them, I guess. and I've heard just about every position. I knew Armenians, I knew Kurds, I knew people from the Black Sea, I knew people from the bigger cities, I knew people from small farming communities in Anatolia, and I met people in Kıyıköy, which is a unique place. It's a beach community on the Black Sea, and a beautiful place. And I know people from all over. My old girlfriend was from Çanakkale, which is Troy. And one of the oldest peoples on earth are now have given up on their republic and have turned to the embrace of a strong man, who I fear is going to treat them very poorly. So my lament is going up. I'm in mourning for the Turks. I'll have a lot more to say about it in the near future. I'm still a little shook up about it, though. I kind of knew it was going to happen the way it did. Erdogan won 52% to 48%, something like that. And of course he cheated. It was probably a razor-thin margin in real life. And there's so many people that really want nothing to do with this, but that it's going to happen, because what you have in Turkey is a democracy that decided that it's not going to be a democracy, and that they decided to give up on it and hand power over to one man. And it's two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner, and that's what their concept of democracy is, and it's come to an end already. So now the strong man will do as he will. I am not encouraged by that development. I find it really alarming in the long run, and I'll explain more of why. But first of all, it is undoing of the freedoms that they've fought a long time for, and including many people who are within the AKP who are probably thinking that they're going to be the last ones eaten, and they might find themselves sadly disabused of that notion, that it doesn't matter on what a deal is. Erdogan was very good at the postmodern thinking, in which words mean what they mean when I want them to mean that. And he's been very good at that. And he's kept a constantly shifting floor, and the CHP just can't keep up. The JHP, there's no way. And then they have actually a fairly honorable man that runs the party. His name's Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, which actually means son of the swordman. But he comes up short every time, and he just doesn't have enough to get any traction. And he's been playing a defensive game for the most part anyway. The HDP, the Kurdish party, they another one, they laid $1 short. MHP betrayed the other two, but originally the Kurds were working with Erdogan, and he double-crossed them a little bit too early, and that set him back. But the MHP, the MHP, they want nothing to do with the Kurdish party. And so when the three of them had a chance to put aside their differences and to form a coalition government, it was their one chance to take power away from Erdogan. The MHP refused to work with the Kurds. And I understand why. I mean, like I say, the Kurds had been playing footsie with Erdogan up until he double-crossed them, started shooting him again. There was a bunch of stuff out east, and he thought, "Oh, I'll take care of that." And then he had the crap with ISIS fighting with the Kurds, and he wasn't helping the Kurds in the least. And matter of fact, I understand that he actually led ISIS through the country. That was a big rumor, and it seems likely. They moved awfully quick from Iraq into Syria, and it was just pretty seamless. It was like they just cut right across Turkey. Well, gee whiz, how'd that happen? I guess maybe there's advantages to being Erdogan's pet, where you get money from him and he denies knowing anything about you. Well, gee whiz. Imagine that. Same with El Nusra, I mean, it's the same deal there. But what you need to understand about ISIS and El Nusra too is they're a Chinese box. And he flips them open and moves them around. They pop up Mosul, right? And then they disappear. Well, where do they disappear into? Well, they disappear into entities like the Free Syria Army. And they also pop across the border into Turkey, and they're missing for a while, and they come out on the other side in Syria. Hello. Chinese box. Right? Now you see it, now you don't. And he's been playing games with them, from the start, really. I mean, ever since the Arab Spring began in 2011. And moved them back and forth to Libya. I mean, it's just the way it is. And, it's just not going to get any better. So at any rate, I will do some more on it, but I'm looking a little bit at the Gulen end. I'd like to inform everybody a bit about him. Also, I talked with GK and Andy over at Like Flint Radio. They're two of my partners, two of the three. Cruzy wasn't there at the time. But it was nice to talk to them, and we have some things going, some joint efforts with this program and with them, and also just some other things that we're trying to line up. I'm trying to line up in here, and they're trying to line up over there. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to a lot of the things that I've got coming for you. Other than that, I'm going to have to keep it secret, but just letting you know that there's good stuff coming. So pray for the people of Turkey.